Hello, listeners. I hope you all are doing well in these very challenging times. I want to personally thank you for joining me in the sound bath and extend the same question that I ask all of our guests to you. So click the link in the show notes to leave me a voice message and let me know what sounds bring you a sense of calm or well-being. What does care mean to you? And what kind of care are you exploring right now? We can't wait to hear from you. And don't forget to like or follow us and leave us a review wherever you find your podcasts.
If I am going to be doing something, especially at this level, especially very visible, I have to be fully all in with my heart and brain in it because it's heavy to be out there. And if you're going to be out and about in the streets as a public figure, being recognized is best. If I can control it, to do it for work that I'm really proud of versus something else that's somebody else's dream.
Good day, listeners. My name is Monet, and you are listening to The Sound Bath, a podcast brought to you by Lush Cosmetics. I am so excited for today's episode because today my good friend Hannibal Buress will be joining us. Hannibal Buress started performing comedy in 2002 while attending Southern Illinois University. He was a writer on Saturday Night Live and at NBC comedy series 30 Rock in 2010. He made Variety magazine's 10 Comics to Watch in 2010 list. He starred on Adult Swim's The Eric Andre Show and was featured on Comedy Central's Broad City. He also played Griff in the comedy movie Daddy's Home and Coach Wilson in the Marvel movie Spider-Man: Homecoming. He's performed on late-night television shows hosted by David Letterman, Jimmy Fallon, and Craig Ferguson. He also created a festival called Isola Fest, a comedy and music festival in a venue owned by his cousin called Playas Palace in Isola, Mississippi, which I had the incredible honor of attending and performing for. More recently, Hannibal Buress has taken on his lovely rap career using the pseudonym Eshu Tune and released his debut EP titled Eshu Tune. It is an incredible honor for me to have Hannibal Buress, aka Eshu Tune, on this show with us today, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation. Thanks for joining me today, Hannibal.
Of course.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And making time in your busy schedule. I feel like, people know you a certain way and you kind of come off in the world as like the title that people know you to have as a comedian. Mm. Sometimes maybe actor. Do people say actor?
People call me actor. Yeah, they do.
You don't like it?
No.
Well, this is why this question will be great. I'm wondering, how would you like to identify as yourself?
I like to make things that I enjoy. And sometimes people enjoy them. Mm. I do not, as far as acting, because I don't even act that much. I've taken one movie in the past 3-4 years or something, and then work one day on it. Some people, are you an actor? I'm real particular. I say, I've acted before. Because there's people that work on it in a way that I never have and never will, that call themselves actors. They train, they've done theater, they've done hella film, and really they get into character. They write a journal for preparation. They think about how somebody walks. I'm Hannibal Buress in a different costume. I'm just, whether I'm a cop or the dentist or this friend or something, I'm not really pushing in a way when I'm acting.
So you wouldn't even title yourself as, do you see yourself as, I'm proudly a comedian because I've studied and I've worked and I've tried to learn? Would you ever say that's a title you would take?
I worked as the comedian. I put out comedy specials and really used to, at my most passionate and active, sometimes in New York, do 5-6 shows in a night type shit, and really locked in. Yeah. Comedy, I spent a lot and traveled the world doing it, and yeah. But then every other stuff was a byproduct of that, not more so me pursuing it. A lot of other things in entertainment came because of that.
Yeah. I always say that when we used to do open mics in New York, the people you would see most of the time, aside from poets, were comedians coming up to do like sets with you. It's really beautiful because I think Chicago and New York are similar in that way, where I would say comedy, poetry, like theater, they're places where like you have to be a part of a community, even if you're not really when you're starting up, in a different way than now, where social media, I think, allows for people to kind of be isolated in their own experience. But when you're really starting out, I remember as a poet, you had to go to a venue, you had to wait on a line, you had to put your name on a list, you had to sit with the nerves and the memory of your lines, and if you knew what you were talking about, and then really feel an audience. And like from feeling an audience, you would gauge whether or not you were effective at what you were doing. And so I wanted to ask, have you noticed the difference between the time you were coming up and having to be in community with people to really feel the scope of your work to now where like social media has taken such a big role in people still, I think, engage with their audience, but it's not so immediate. There must be something different that you feel, even if, I mean, I know this sounds kooky, but like spiritually, whatever you may say, but being able to see your joke or your line in someone else's face, like seeing their reaction and the gestures must have some kind of impact that's different than just sharing something online and getting a comment.
Yeah, absolutely. The live thing, it's a lot. We just finished up the 5th of 6 shows of the Isola sessions. And it's gone by so fast because when you do something weekly, right after you're done, you got to start working on the next week. You got to get the flyers ready. You got to start getting out. You got to, start preparing, advancing. And so it just made, whoa, we did 5 shows that fast. And I think it just attracts, even just me putting the shows on, has created extra momentum for outside bookings and other things. It's just been nice. In LA, I was becoming a bit of a homebody. I was doing some gigs on the road or traveling, and then I would be here and say, wait a second, I don't do live stuff on the regular here, but I'm in a major entertainment city. What the fuck am I doing? And so I realized I couldn't say LA is weird if I hadn't really made an effort to do something in nightlife. Now that I'm doing that, it's nice to have that hub. It's nice to have that to work towards. And when I was in New York, I had a weekly at Knitting Factory, and I was still doing a bunch of other stuff and touring, and I didn't make it sometimes because I was on the road. Now I have guest hosts, but it was built and it ran. And so having that regular thing was so dope. And then when I would travel internationally, and the room held 100-some people, but we did it so many times over the years. I go overseas, I go to London, I go to Australia, I go somewhere, and we folks are like, oh, I was at Knitting Factory. I saw a Knitting Factory one because it's New York. You playing locally, but also people are always, they're from everywhere, so you play into the world when you play New York. And that wasn't the intention. When I was doing it, it wasn't, I hope that people in, when I go to Korea, I meet somebody that was at this New York show, but that's what happened.
Do you ever think about creating something that's like a hub for comedy that will just outlive you? Have you thought about a legacy in some sort of venue?
In Isola, we got my venue there in Isola, Mississippi. I do want to start either a monthly or a weekly there that we just produce and come in every couple months just to show face and keep it moving. So we want to build something there for Mississippi artists, definitely, and stream it and have that. So we're going to do that over the next few months. We were supposed to start a couple weeks ago, but then got kind of bogged down with gigs. But I definitely like building, because it's one of those things, you build it, folks going to come through. They want to come, especially in a spot like Mississippi, and they're going to bring their folks. People want to have a spot to show their stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen.
I want to know about, I think people don't fully always know all the things that you're doing that are like really helping a lot of people. And I think you're a very thoughtful friend and considerate person. And I think, you have a really good heart. And I think you try to do things that include and incorporate a lot of people. And so can we talk about why that has become such a big part of this iteration of your life?
When you put nice stuff together and people show up and enjoy themselves, it has good results, and that can compound. And so wanting to do that at a high level and keep on doing it is because it's nice to see people feel good after you built something. And when we went to Isola, did Isola Fest last minute.
How did Isola Fest come to be?
Me and my cousin own a little club down there.
Yes, it is a little club.
Initially, I was trying to help him just kind of run the club from afar. And, we were like, oh, we'll do the digital marketing. And then I realized I can't just do it like that. I have to do something to make a splash at the club. And then we can ride off the momentum of that. And so I should do a gig. I said I should do a big one-night show or something like that. And then we'll ride off that. And so I was deciding to do it December, I think 13th, because later would have been too close to the holidays, and then it would have given us the time to plan for the next one. So December 13th, we do it a couple weeks out. I asked T-Pain first. He says yes. I'm surprised. And I said, you know what? We're doing a festival. Because just off of the momentum.
You're so shocked. You're like, T-Pain said yes.
Yeah, T-Pain said yes. It's a 3-day festival. And it was a fun time. Thank you for coming down and do it. And it was dope to build at that level and do it somewhere where they don't get events at all. You can see how it affected folks and brought a lot of folks to Isola that had never been there and want to use that to kind of be the foundation for building other stuff in the town. It's a small town, 1,000 folks, but they got their little main strip, and I think there's room to have a little cafe there or maybe a 1-2 screen movie theater and also having a venue, having, weekly events, building that performance community down there, and make it where that's the small town that folks drive 45 an hour to. We're gonna get another festival in probably next year, maybe Memorial Day weekend or something like that.
Well, let me know how I can help. My next question is about Eshu Tune.
Yeah.
You felt the need to have a different name for this person or this version of yourself. So where did this version of yourself come to be? How did it come into being?
I've been working on music for a while, and I was just trying to think of a stage name. And I had a couple ideas, but they weren't fully sticking. They felt cool, but they didn't feel like, do I want to be called this in 5 years? They were ideas for the moments. Wabansia Joe.
Wabansia Joe?
Wabansia Joe. Wabansia is a block in my old neighborhood in Chicago. And then Joe is what Chicagoans call.
That's actually a really cool name.
Yeah.
Low-key.
Wabansia Joe, it might still live.
He might come through.
It might come through in some other way. It might be a feature, and that might be me with a vocal shifter on. But Eshu, I was trying to come up with this stage name. I looked up Nigerian mythology, and Eshu is the trickster god.
Yeah.
I saw that, and it resonated with how I think and things I've done. Mm-hmm. It just felt right away. And then it helped me kind of compartmentalize a little bit. I was able to view Eshu as a new act and view Hannibal as the guy that's bringing Eshu to shit no matter what. And that helped me be able to, have more momentum and work for it. Because then a lot of times people want to get Hannibal in for something. And like, yeah, Hannibal don't want to do that. But Eshu will come through, especially at that price. That's, you're talking Eshu money. Eshu, Hannibal is a jaded industry veteran. Eshu is a hungry, wide-eyed, open, up-and-comer. And he will take that $750. So now I'm able to work in that place of fun and doing open mics as a musician and performing for 6 people and enjoying it and doing shows and losing money on shows, but not tripping about it.
When you think about what he represents in the Yoruba, tradition and religion, when you talk to people who come from the Yoruba tradition, they talk about this dismissal of a binary of just good and bad, and that the idea that there is a trickster that is a part of sometimes causing hysteria or chaos for the sake of actually unifying people, even as it seems as if it's bringing people apart. Do you see what you do with Eshu Tune as a part of like bringing out? Because I think comedy in some way, it gets people to make fun of themselves in order to see the ridiculousness of the predicament they're in. Do you feel like now that you're able to do this with music, that you see comedy showing up in a more like intentional way, or does it just come, if it comes, it's just part of Hannibal that comes out?
The comedy's still there.
Because I heard you rap one time as Eshu, and I was like, you got bars.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an immediate, yeah.
Because I've, heard the doubts or whatever. So it's just, it's something I worked at for a while to even get to the point mentally to start really doing it publicly without fear. I worked at it a lot. I had these real songs that are grounded or honest and vulnerable, and then I had these songs that are kind of silly. So I struggled for a while. Oh, can I do these type of songs and these type of... And then it was just do what? Yeah. Do what do I feel? Just do all of it.
You're listening to The Sound Bath, brought to you by Lush Cosmetics, and my name is Aja Monet. I'm currently in conversation with my friend Hannibal Buress, a comedian, writer, and rapper. Next up, I want to talk to him about some of the struggles he went through before he started making music. But first, do you feel like you find yourself with Eshu Tune being able to really delve into some of the other parts of yourself that maybe your character as Hannibal Buress or the person that people see you as doesn't allow you to?
Not to say that I couldn't or it's not possible, but for me, doing the music and not having to work for the lab or not having to workshop publicly, it's still some element of it. I'll do songs before they're out, you know what I mean? But that song has been worked on in private, and then I'm getting stuff to my taste. If it work in this room and I'm playing it 20 times before I take it out. And so it's nice to have that. Sometimes with comedy, you can be telling a story to a friend and that can kind of be a little bit of a litmus. But for the most part, you kind of grind it out in front of an audience. So I do think being able to really vibe with something and work on something and believe in it in private changes the vibe of how you perform publicly. It's like, this is music, this is bop. I like it. I trust my taste. This shit goes. I made the beat on some of it. This beat goes. I know what good beats sound like. I feel like I know what good concepts are. And so that's the difference in it, is the audience, holds a lot of the weight in comedy. Because it's like, waiting for that, waiting for it. And so I'm not doing stand-up gigs on a regular, but I'm doing elite banter. I'm still doing, I still got it. But because I'm not doing it in that setting, it's less pressurized.
Yeah.
But the quality's still there, but it's not in the thing of them. It's in between songs. Preacher's playing keys under it. And so their minds is already relaxed by the keys. I popped up at the comedy club in New York, and I don't really how this feels. It's like ain't no music and shit. So now I'm spoiled because it is tougher. It's tougher. I stopped at this open mic in Philly, the Comedy John. I did Adult Swim Fest, and then I stayed an extra day just hanging out in Philly. And it was this little room upstairs. It had maybe 30 people, 40, but super tight. Just had a vibe to it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go up. And then I get up there, and I started doing a little bit of stand-up, but the stand-up, that shit was rusty. And I just was like, fuck it. I just started rapping. And then it went over because the flow was tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, you can't,
It was undeniable.
Yeah. And so it was just, I had to go to that as far as just working the crowd in that moment. Because I did not just have the, as far as the stand up in that moment, I would have to prep. That's the thing now. If I had to do it in a club, normal style, I would have to prep and really, okay, this is what I'm doing. I used to be able to just go up and be fine, but now I have to really think about, because I'm not doing it as much, and so it's not as quick, and so that lack of preparation. Sometimes I get up there and I ain't hearing the music or nothing. I'm like, oof. And I'm like, y'all do this every day.
It sounds like you're integrating the best parts of yourself at this stage of your career. And so I think like what you're doing with comedy and also rap doesn't feel like it's necessarily different or that they're completely opposites. It's just deepening your practice.
It allows me to do just a bigger show. And even with my stand-up, if you go back and listen to my specials or my first album, all the way up to here, all the breadcrumbs are there.
You're like, go look at the breadcrumbs.
Like, it's me talking about lyrics.
Yeah.
Me talking about
rap references.
Me talking about being at a show and they did this, having a DJ and having sound bites, having visuals in the show, having an auto-tune. It just feels good to have the shift. And the other part of it, the unintended result of it, is having folks reach out, being excited about it, and then them wanting to do something else that they been putting off or wanting to do. And they're like, oh, I see you rapping. That make me want to do the shit that's been really cool.
So a question I've definitely always wanted to ask you that I never did was around your name.
Yeah.
Actual Hannibal. What was it like to be named after like a military commander? What was that like growing up? To be who you are.
Is. It's heavy just because of the movie it shifted the conversation. And so it's just people's people, so they don't know what your experience is. But it's just a weird, and even,
it's a powerful name for your parents to have decided to name you Hannibal.
Yeah.
That's like
It's a strong choice.
It was a very strong choice.
It's a strong choice by John.
There's so much in a name. I think what's really interesting is names. There's so much in a name and what it manifests, what it like puts into fruition.
I studied Hannibal some, and it is some stuff I try to apply. And that is
interesting. Like what?
Well, I'm a warmonger. No.
I'm like, wait, what?
But strategically and just in planning, Hannibal, used elephants, and that was, an alternative is the unexpected strategy. It was a surprise, and so thinking about that in how I work and how I plan and just in how I come up with ideas for things, or that part of it.
That's really beautiful to hear because I don't know if people know you to be someone who I think is like actually very poetic. Maybe you don't see yourself in that way, but like even who you decided to take on as the name for this next iteration of your rap career, music career, and the way that you're taking on this, it feels like very poetic. It almost feels like natural. Like, clearly I wrote this story out and I planned it this way.
I feel good. And people have noticed it. Like, hey, you look happy. You look genuinely happy. Because I am. And I was not at the time. And so to know that every day I'm really just hyped about the possibilities, and there's so much to do. There's so much new stuff. There's new ideas. There's, visual, video ideas to come up with, beats to make, songs to write.
What was the struggle to do that, though? Like you just said, you weren't before. So that's interesting for someone to have the responsibility to kind of make people laugh or be a comedian when you're struggling with your own sadness. How did you handle that?
Well, I think it was just doing work that I wasn't fulfilled by, but look good or financially look good or is very visible work. And then doing that and then having to promote that. And so that, like, realizing the gravity of that and how that feels when you do something that you're not connected to, but then it's a big project and then you have to go sell it also. You're like, wait.
So it's interesting going back full circle because that feels a lot like acting.
That's the real acting. The real acting is in the promotion. You got to do 30 of them in a day or something. And then
you find ways, you're trying to find ways to escape that feeling. Or
you have to numb through stuff, you know. And so that taught me if I am going to be doing something, especially at this level, especially very visible, I have to be fully all in with my heart and brain in it because it's heavy to be out there. And if you're going to be out and about in the streets as a public figure, being recognized is best if I can control it to do it for work that I'm really proud of versus something else that's somebody else's dream. And so it's just like, okay, that's not what I'm here to do. That's what some folks might want me to do. And I did it. And so it's just now knowing, okay, this is what I want to do. I wake up hyped. You know, if you waking up or a PA knocking on my door, I'm like, it's like, okay, I'm not supposed to be doing this. If I'm showing up late and shit and start acting out in these ways, it's because I'm not connected to the work. There should be somebody else in those spots that want to be there. I'm not being the best version of myself when I'm doing that shit. And so that's why I have to remove myself from it.
Yeah, I wonder what role has being a father played in this phase of you?
It's a big part. Initially, I wanted to get the music out before she was born because in my mind, I didn't want her to be like, wait, you talking about wanting to rap all the time, you ain't put out no music. So I imagine this.
You didn't want your daughter to say that to you?
Yeah, I imagined this conversation where she's challenging me on having this passion and never really acting on it despite having all the resources to make it possible and no real obstacles. And wait, you have money, you have time, there's nothing stopping you from creating and making stuff. And so I imagined her just being really disappointed in that. And so I didn't get it out before she was born, but I did get it out and starting to do it.
That is really beautiful. It's like actually a very beautiful thing to hear. You know how people like write letters to their future kids or whatever. Your daughter was already speaking to you from like the womb. What do you feel like your daughter has taught you about love? Or what do you want to show your daughter about love that you feel like you didn't maybe feel before?
Just being present, being in the moment as much as possible and the time. So I just think about this work and it does take me away sometimes. And so how to figure out smoothing that part of it out. I was going for 11 days recently, which was an 11-day trip. But then she's 16 months. So
11 days is like 10 years.
Yeah, 11 days out of, she's only like 365 and then 4 months and 120, so 485 days. Oh, so 11 out of 45 is a strong chunk of days. Fonte had this line on a song and he said, I come back from the road, look at my son like, damn nigga, when you get a mustache. And it's when you go away, especially these stages, you go away, you come back, and baby different than when you was there. It's subtle, but she don't be the same as, because they always change it. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to be different each time too.
Yeah.
Probably not as much, but yeah. My next question is, in a world where things are you're constantly being inundated with what's wrong, what's going wrong in the world, and it can feel at times very discouraging. There's also so much possibility, and there's a lot of really wonderful things happening and creative stuff that's being made. And so I wonder, as someone who's creating in this time and like feeling inspired again by this new part of yourself that you're exploring and creating, what makes you feel most free?
When I'm in a soundproof room and they would just make stuff and just listening to music or working on music or in somebody else's studio. Went to T Nava's studio. T Nav was in Free Nationals. I think it was our first time. I hung out with him a bunch, but never been in a studio with him. And I played him this song I've been working on, No Whip. And then he heard it and then immediately started grabbing for his shit to add something to it. And TK, who made the beat, he was with me. And so it's a song, I recorded it in June of this year. And I've been listening to it a bunch and whatnot. I put it up on SoundCloud, but I haven't been pushing it yet. I'm happy with it now, but it's not a finished product, but I love it where it's at. It's gonna get better. But to see somebody else react to it freshly and be like, I got some shit for this. That was really dope to have that feeling. And then me and TK was like, oh, shit. And he was snapping on it and he elevated the song. So moments like that with the music in studio, coming up with stuff, and, that's where I'm most free. And then on stage with the band, when we locked in, or when I'm improvising, last night we were talking about what we're going to do for the October 30th show. I was joking around with the crowd, and maybe everybody just dress up like preachers for Halloween, and that's just a Sunday, everybody dressed up like preachers, and I started talking about my experience with religion. And I went to a Lutheran grade school, and so it was kind of me. Then I started improvising this song, like, why am I Lutheran? It's just, you can come up with the whole detail of why, like the base level part of it, or you can get into the, how do we end up in Chicago, blah, 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 Jim Crow, jobs up north, blah, 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 like, let it be, blah, 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 Lutheran. But it was just that moment of just, I hadn't really even talked about that ever in front of an audience. And then going from talking about it into freestyling a song, why am I? And the crowd going. So those type of moments that were organic, and that was the perfect combination of music and comedy in the live setting. In that time, it was dope to have those type of moments. Because then I'm not thinking about nothing else except for the music, for the moment, the crowd in that time, or in the studio. That's why I love it in here, because you can't hear nothing else. So when it's bumping, And so it's nice to do that, because there's a lot going on in the world, obviously. And so we're able to really zone into the work. That's when we make the best work.
Yeah, that's ultimate presence. So the last question I have, which is a question we ask all of our guests all the time, is a question about what sounds really resonate with you.
Certain synth sounds. Sometimes just sitting here and just play synths, just vibe out, and put visuals on, and just play shit. I had this song Veneers. This is the basic dum dum, the sound off of the Moog. It's actually off of the Moog app and not the physical Moog, but it's like dum dum, dum dum, dum dum. But then we put it through some remix plugin, and then it kind of chopped it, and like sped it up. And so it was just took the one simple sound and then just changed it rhythmically. And it was just hearing that was like, oh, giving the sound a whole new life. The remix is a sound we already liked and, been hearing for a year and some change. So certain synth sounds. When I was living in Hawaii, the ocean was really just being able to hear the ocean easily, or go out there, just that type of peaceful noise.
Wow, Hanny. It's been so nice talking to you.
You're talking to you too.
Yeah, thank you for making the time. Thank you so much for listening, and please enjoy this beautiful sonic meditation.